Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Well, welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska Show. I am your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska. I am actually back from Hawaii, and I am camping all over Alaska with my family. We're going to Captain Cook, we're going to Hope, we're going to Seward, we're going to Homer, then we're going to Denali, living the dream, living in a 1975 travel trailer for a month or so. So I want to welcome everybody to our guest today. His name is Strider Wilson. And before we go into that, more in depth, I do want to thank everybody for listening, for folks that listen, for folks that donate, for folks that read our news articles and all that kind of stuff. We do all this for you all, and we kick butt here in Alaska because you all listen, read, and watch our stuff, and we're thankful for that. And we have a very special treat today. Normally we cover just news in Alaska, but as of late, the last couple of months, we've been kind of sprinkling in some business folks and sprinkling in a couple nonprofits. And today we have a comedian on our show, none other than Strider Wilson. So Strider, welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show.
Dude, thank you, John. I'm just fired up to be here. It's awesome that you're in Alaska. When you reached out via Instagram, that's where I am these days. Speaking of doing comedy, I started 11 years ago. I never thought it would be doing Instagram, but it's been great, and it's led to probably the most gigs and shows and everything. But as soon as I saw that you go, I run a podcast in Alaska, I said, how do I say no to this?
We got to do this.
Yeah, and it felt so far away. I was like, well, what are the time zones? Are we going to record at like 3 a.m.? You're like, well, it's only like an hour difference because I'm in LA. And so this is great. I'm fired up to be here, and I'm stoked on the hiking you're doing with your family and stuff. I was looking up some Alaska facts. Look, if you're going to hike anywhere, if you can handle the cold, you could do it naked, because guess what? There's no poison ivy, no poison oak. You're good to go in Alaska.
Well, you have the mosquitoes. We have like
nature's deadliest animal.
Oh my gosh. I mean, they swarm. You kind of get used to it, but I'm literally not even exaggerating. I probably have 100 mosquito bites on my body right now.
Reminds me of when I went zip lining in summer camp, and I was afraid to get on the zip line, and this was in Yosemite, and I wanted to get in the creek, and the creek was really cold, and it would keep the mosquitoes off you. And finally I got just feasted on. I go, all right, I got to get on the zip line, and I've been zip lining ever since, John. If I could describe myself in 2 words, it'd just be zip line and chilling.
So for folks that don't know who Strider Wilson is, I would encourage you to go look him up. Go onto the Google, as George W. Bush would say, and
Yes.
Type his name in there. And he has got some pretty funny stuff that most of the stuff a lot of the stuff you can consume for free. He's got shows you can go and pay to see, but a lot of the stuff you can just go on there and check it out. So Strider, have you ever been to Alaska? And if not, is it on your bucket list?
I was lucky enough to go to Alaska when I graduated high school. Like sometimes I'm from OC, dude. So I was very lucky to grow up there. And when I graduated, my parents were like, we booked a cruise. And I was like, sweet, let's go to the Caribbean. I'm going to get a tan. This is going to be rad. They're like, nope, Alaska. I was like, whoa. And but it ended up being awesome. It was so cool. I remember there was a kid who was too old to be naked the whole time on the boat. I was like, he's like 12. Like, I get it if like you got kids like 5, whatever. It's like, I don't know what the age is, but if I'm in public, dude, my 12-year-old ain't running around naked the whole time, dude.
Yeah, that's a no-go.
Yeah, big time no-go. And on cruises, it's sweet because all the food's free. This kid was running around like eating a freaking Reuben in the jacuzzi. I'm like, yeah, good for him, dude. So that's just been my life goals, is to get to that level of happiness. But it's beautiful, man. We went, we saw like a Mendenhall glacier. So we saw maybe a a glacier that started with an H. I forget. I want to say Hubbard, but that's the telescope. But we went down the Mendenhall River, did some rafting. I sat up front, got soaked in like 34-degree water.
Oh yeah, like glacier water.
Yeah, dude, it really was, it woke you up. And it was awesome, man. The nature was cool. Saw bears. Yeah, I loved it. But like it like rains basically every day. It's like, yep, probably gonna rain. 50%. Flip a coin.
Yep. If you went to around Juneau or Ketchikan or Skagway, if any of those names sound
Ketchikan.
familiar,
Ketchikan, yeah.
it rains all the time there. It's but it is one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's kind of like they want the folks that are coming on cruise ships to think it rains all the time, so nobody moves there.
That's probably true because, you know, yeah, in LA it's really populated and it's crazy. And Alaska, it's probably nice. I mean, it probably takes a personality. Probably takes a guy running from the law, or you're born there. John, which one are you?
So you'll laugh at this. We a couple weeks ago, I interviewed a gentleman who his literal legal name is Santa Claus. Now, it even gets better because Santa Claus is a nice person. He's like, he's not
jolly.
Just a gimmick. He's a super nice guy, but he literally lives in North Pole, Alaska.
No way.
And he's the mayor of North Pole, Alaska, and his name is Santa Claus.
This guy's the man. That's awesome.
He's an elected official, officially the mayor of the North Pole, Alaska.
That's amazing. Is there a Mrs. Claus? That's the big question. Is he?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Nah. Or a Mr. Claus. Who cares? All I want is him to have a little bit of company up there at the North Pole. You know what I'm saying? I want him to be enjoying himself.
I think he actually ran for a bigger office, and so he kind of got all around Alaska and got to meet a bunch of folks. And he was in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times as Santa Claus. You know,
this guy's a legend.
Big office. He's the everybody knows him in Alaska. So
that's rad, and everyone knows him around the world, at least the mythical
Santa. So how did you get involved in comedy? I feel like it's one of those things that, I was kind of the class clown and
yeah, same.
My grade school growing up, but it's one thing to be the class clown. It's another thing to make a career of it. And that's kind of what you're aspiring or already have done. How did you get involved in comedy first and foremost?
Yeah, I would say definitely still aspiring. I'm finally having some mild success and hopefully bigger things to come. But I started in college. I was studying econ at UC San Diego. And then this was like around the time that the stock market crashed, like 08, 07, right? And so basically there was no jobs anyway. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to ask myself, what if? Let me just go for it. Like, really, what do I have to lose? Like, I'm not going to get hired anywhere. Like, I wasn't that great at econ. I wasn't going to be any sort of consultant. And then I saw an improv show on campus and I was like, I could do that. And that's like, if you're not familiar with improv, or anyone listening, that's kind of like, whose line is it anyway? It was like a short form, games that are kind of made up on the spot that have rules. And I was like, oh man, this is great. And just like you mentioned, like I was a class clown. I love attention. I'd do anything for the attention. I need that. Give it to me. So I was like, this is perfect. Started taking classes at like Second City, which they had a branch in it's famously Chicago, but they kind of have satellites like, Toronto, LA, Detroit. I don't know if everyone went to New York, but they had classes out here and I took some classes. I grew up in Orange County, which is like San Diego south. Then you go 60 miles, you're in Orange County north, then 60 more miles north, you're in LA. So I'd kind of stop home, say hi to the fam, go do some classes all while in college. And then when I graduated, just got a job at Nordstrom, lived at home for a little bit, saved some dough, then moved up to LA with my buddy JT, who you mentioned previously, I think before recording, but I perform with and do a lot of stuff with my boys Chad and JT. So yeah, we've been getting after it ever since. And
so have you had like one of those, breaks that people, would die for, or has it been just kind of a daily grind of just literally doing the work and you're moving forward an inch every day?
That's like 99% of it is just the grind. And I've been doing ballet forever. And, but it's good because it's flexible. You can go to auditions, book shows, once you're done with work, you're done. It's not like I need to, take work home with me. It's not like I'm thinking, oh man, I missed the angle. I'm parking that Yukon in the lot in G lot. I'm just not going to sleep well tonight. But it's like, that's the classic Hollywood hustle. You got your day job, and then you go and do your creative stuff at night and shows and write. Um, but I would say recently, Chad and JT had they were working on a big project that I was part of that's going to be coming out later this summer. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It's a little vague, but I have to be vague because it's NDA. But
Nice.
so that'll hopefully be the game changer.
Well, you were on, I think I saw somewhere where Vice did kind of a mini
Yeah.
documentary on one of your characters. Can you tell us a little bit about that, how that came? Because Vice, I mean, that's a big,
Yeah.
at least for, they make some really cool kind of mini documentaries, and
Yeah.
you have to, you caught their eye for some reason. So kind of give us that story. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, that was cool. I caught their eye because, and this is good, because if anyone listening, they're like, what does this Strider guy look like? Just imagine Joel Osteen and then stop imagining, because that's exactly what I look like. So yeah, I look like, this televangelist from Houston, Joel Osteen. And doing comedy, speaking of the grind, it's like, you got to do new things, right? You can't do the same thing and expect the same different results. So we were making a lot of sketches at the time with a group of guys, and we're like, dude, let's go. We're like, Joel Osteen's coming to LA. He's going to do a prayer night, and he sells out arenas and does holds prayer nights.
Yeah,
and
like
services.
30,000 people will come out to see him.
Yeah, he was going to go. He was holding a evening of prayer at the Great Western Forum where the Lakers used to play. Seats like 20,000 people. So we're like, well, literally, we go, let's go film this. Put on a suit, and then I was going to go do sort of uncharacteristically pastorally stuff. Like I was going to go there and be like, hey, can I get a beer from concessions? And then, the old horse racing track, Hollywood Park's next door. So I was like, hey, I got these old tickets from playing the ponies. Can I ask these still good to cash in? I'm a little short on the dough. You know what I mean? Donations have been thin, and sort of that was the idea of going around and schmoozing and see how people reacted. And then we drive up, and I'm driving up in my old Hyundai Santa Fe that's the bumper's all messed up because I'm a good valet. And I'm like, hey, do I get free parking? I'm kind of running the show. And security was like, yeah, go ahead. And so there was this
they
yeah.
think Joel Osteen's showing up in like a 1998 Santa Fe.
Exactly. Like, hey, he's a man of the people. Like, maybe he's practicing what Jesus preaches. And literally no skepticism. And JT, who was directing the video, is like, dude, this is unbelievable, bro. I'm like, I know. So we sort of abandoned the sketch comedy idea of doing uncharacteristic things. And we're like, let's just try to get on the stage and see what happens, bro. And so we go, and we get all the way up there. And then finally, Joel's actual security finds out. And this guy's thinks he's part of SEAL Team 6. He's like, sit down. What are you thinking? What do you do? Super gnarly. And, but then that video really was a hit. And then Vice reached out after that. And then Vice was interesting because, and I was really worried, because it was part of this series called Fame-ish. And I think they wanted me to think that I was famous because I looked like Joel. And I was like, no. I felt like they want to trap me, because Vice does that a lot. They'll sort of
pigeonhole you into this
yes,
is who you are.
Exactly. And the subject they're interviewing, they want to make them look a little bit crazy and a little bit eccentric or whatever. And I was very much no, it's part of being a comedian. You have to have a sort of grand sense of self-awareness in how you're perceived, doing stand-up.
Well, this is one of your 100 bits you did. It's not the only bit you'll ever done in your whole life.
Exactly. It was one character, and it was a character that struck well. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to ride this horse, see where it goes. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, of course I'm going to do this interview. But the whole time, I kept having to dodge questions of and they do these interview tactics where they'll ask you a question and then wait a really long time and then wait for you to be on camera and just sort of do normal gestures. But then if you edit it, that's an editing trick where the context can be whatever, you know what I mean? I could be having any thought in my mind, but it can be made to look like insecurity or I don't know, egotism, whatever it wants to be, negative. So I was a little paranoid about it, but it ended up coming out great. I was got all my buddies involved. I was like, no, you're showing my buddies. We're going to where we do sketches. You're going to come to a live show. You're really going to see so in that sense, that video did offer a good sliver of day in the life of grinding and being a comedian.
When you find something like that that's kind of got that a little bit of esteem behind it, is it tough to keep that's 5% of your probably or less of all your jokes that you come up with. But not every joke has to do with Joel Osteen. Is it tough to not just kind of ride that one trick pony, or do you find yourself, scattered enough to where it's kind of like happened last week? I can just keep doing my comedy routine. That improv is improv. You're showing up in front of a stage, and you can't be Joel Osteen every time. You're got to be yourself and tell your own jokes. Is it tough though to not do the one trick pony?
I would say, maybe like around that time it was, because it was like getting some offers for Joel stuff, but I didn't feel like I had the right idea, or it was like someone else's idea, and I was like, nah. And it was like someone else being like, yeah, we need to go after the religion. And I was like, look, I was raised Catholic. I was like, look, man, first of all, God hates me, dude. I'm afraid of that. Second of all, it was never about the religion. People can believe whatever they want. You know what I mean? Like, I was more lampooning this guy who's like super silky smooth, and he's obviously raking in the dough. So there's inherent hypocrisy there. And I was like, that's sort of where the joke's coming from me. And even then it was never super hard hitting. Then the Harvey happened. So I was like, oh, he's in the news. Like, I got to keep up. And I did some Harvey videos, but, it was never the right angle. And I still to this day, and, I'll talk with my managers of like, they're like, we got to do some Joel stuff. And I'm like, I know, it's like, it would be very remiss of me to look like this and not do it. But I feel like I want to do it right. And the right idea just hasn't happened yet, or
hasn't got there yet.
Yeah. And then they made Righteous Gemstones on HBO, and I'm like, ooh, I like this. Like, maybe there's space on that show.
That show's hilarious.
Yeah, they do a good job. And so maybe it's something like that. And I'd like to do some more scripted stuff, like you mentioned. Like, a lot of the Joel stuff I've done has been sort of in public and interacting with people, and like, yeah, I'll write jokes out, but a lot of it's organic and it goes in a different direction.
So one of the things that for folks that are listening to us, I got Strider Wilson here, and he's a comedian, lives in SoCal, been to Alaska once. He has got some really cool stuff. If you just Google his name, he has a little mini documentary that Vice has done on him. He's got a lot of his kind of sketches on his Instagram that you can check out. But another thing that Strider does is he has his own podcast called History is Dank.
Yeah,
and
dude.
So that's, as you know, we're doing a podcast now. Mm-hmm. A podcast takes a lot of work, and so not only are you doing your comedy thing, and you guys, you're probably out filming and editing videos, and writing jokes for Friday, Saturday night improv stuff. Podcast also takes a lot of work. Can you talk to us a little bit about your podcast, what it is, how do people find you, and kind of what got you started on it in the first place?
Totally. Yeah. And I think it comes from the essence of like seeing my buddies Chad and JT and their podcast, Going Deep, that I'll frequent on, and the network that it was on, I was like doing, pretty well on their podcast. And then ATC is the network that it's on, and they're like, Strider, would you be interested in doing your own? I was like, yeah, for sure. And then it's like you mentioned, it's called History is Dank. And I thought about it, I was like, well, look, if I'm going to put in the work to do this, and I want it to be worthwhile. And also I thought about, a good rule of thumb with comedy is like, in making jokes, is like, don't try to make someone laugh. Of course, that's what we're doing, but it's like, you do what you think is funny. And if you're being honest to that, then that'll come through. And that's sort of where the magic is. And yes, you have to have craft and all that type of stuff, but like the very, very base level is like, you have your sense of humor, play to your sense of humor. And when it came to podcasts and stuff and my entertainment, I like infotainment type stuff. I like to watch a documentary. I'm a big Ken Burns guy. I love Dan Carlin, hardcore history. So that's sort of like what I take in. And I was like, well, you know what? I like history. I got a history minor in college. I actually didn't. I skipped one class and didn't get it. I wanted to just party my last quarter. What up? UC's aren't quarter system.
Which actually makes it even more funny that you almost got a history minor.
Exactly. I'm truly not qualified in any way. But I I'll do the research and as best I can. And I like to jump around. Like, it's not serial. I like that every episode, at least for me, I like that every episode's about 40 minutes to an hour, like a commute, and you get a little information, and hopefully you get some laughs, and you're out the door. So
you're talking about history, but you're making it funny, and maybe if somebody read a college textbook, they might fall asleep a half a page in. They're not
Yes,
going to do that when they listen to your podcast, probably. Hopefully.
100%. There's this comedian that I like named Ahmed Barusha, and he's got a great take on history where he's like, history class, why are we memorizing all these dates? Like June, like the Olive Branch Petition, June 10th, 1775, whatever. It's like history has the best stories. He's like, what? He's like, if your buddy's telling you about a threesome he had, is he telling you May 5th, 1992? Does he start like that? He goes, no, bro. He goes, I was in Cabo. It was amazing, dude. I was taking a break with Cheryl. She knew that. And then we're off to the races. It's like, it's the details, baby. It's not the dates. So that's what we try to lead from.
And all
the
things
story.
comedy, that's like, I'll brag about you a little bit because you did the all things comedy brand. That's kind of like it for podcasts, right? If
It's pretty legit. Yeah. I mean, it's Bill Burr's network, and it's really cool to be on there. And I'm a smaller show on there, but it's good company.
you got to feel good about that. That's a win.
It's awesome. I'm very, very lucky, and they're great. And the fact that it's run by comedians is like they treat you well, and it's I'm really lucky. Studio's awesome.
So
I got my boy Aaron on the sticks.
I'm sure you've met some cool people, just being in the circles that you're in. Is there somebody that you look up to in the business world, dead or alive, that you've kind of gleaned on? Because as you know, it's oftentimes it's Gary Vaynerchuk's one of my favorite folks to listen to. He's an entrepreneur guy, and he always talks about the grind. And just hearing your story a little bit, you're doing a lot of work. It's not like this thing's been handed to you on some silver platter. You're busting your butt on a daily basis. So is there somebody out there that you look up to and kind of aspire to be?
I mean, for comedy wise, I always loved Will Ferrell, what he did, his characters, his takes. As far as like the business world, I always think like I like Tony Hawk a lot, where I'm like, you know what, he skated. He was like he started Birdhouse, which was like never that cool. At least like when I grew up skating in SoCal, it was always like, nah, dude, Volcom, or like you want a Chad Muska Etnies or something sick like that in SoCal, or some globes. Like, I don't want Birdhouse stuff, but like Tony Hawk ripped at skating, did the 900, and then came out with Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And then he made a great business decision where like he was doing well enough skating in his tournaments and whatever, that I forget what company it was that he teamed up with to make that game, but they offered to buy him out. They're like, hey, look, we'll give you like, 500,000 or 200,000, like a large sum of money to like a young man. Maybe he was like 25, 30 at that point.
Yeah, young skateboarder, 500,000.
Right.
Like, oh crap, seriously?
Yeah, exactly. But he trusted in himself and was like, and he even mentioned, he goes, but I was doing well enough in skating that like rent was getting paid and the money was okay, and I put in all this effort on the game. And so he's like, I didn't take the deal. He's like, I didn't let them buy me out from the game. And then he ended up making like hundreds and millions of dollars. And like also just goes to show like these people that he worked with totally want to undercut him. So it's a good like, there's a lot of levels of that you can learn just from that one story of like, first of all, I like that he skates. I love that he did something cool, has a skill, and then took that skill to new mediums. And yeah, he's just a beast. And I like that, like in comedy, you got to believe in yourself. If you don't, I mean, especially with stand-up, like you'll drop off because it's disheartening. You do in entertainment, it is literally 90%, 99% just no, not good enough, or someone else is getting it, or it's not your time, or just wait. But you got to love it. It's about more than dollars. Of course, the dollars can be good, but rent's got to get paid. But yeah, you just get to do stuff that you love, and and I like that he doubled down on himself, dude. You got to bet on yourself.
So have you ever had a show just completely bomb? Like,
yeah, oh yeah, dude, especially improv.
Like, what do you do? Like,
90% of improv is bombing, and then yeah, you just got to take those licks. I mean, I still have a lot of growth to do, and but yeah, early on my stand-up's so bad, dude. I'll be like brushing my teeth. I'll think back on shows years ago where I was like, I did that bit, I said that out loud. I'm like, geez, that's bad. That's so dumb. There's like no idea there, but you got to get through it. Like, you're going to suck, it's like that Ira Glass thing, paraphrasing, but it's a longer quote, but he's like, you have your taste and that's what you have to rely on. Like, your artistry and your craft won't be there yet. You got to work on it. And it's sort of tough with like, you look at a musician, you're like, oh, you play guitar or an instrument. You could see the craft. But with like comedy, it's like Conan O'Brien says this, it's like no one approaches comedy being like, I don't know what's funny. If someone looks at an abstract piece of art, they're like, no, explain this to me. I understand. We all appreciate that as a culture, but why? But comedy, it's like the audience is like, no, I know what I like to laugh at. And then on top of that, the craft in your instrument is like, well, what is that? Well, it's like it's your perspective that you develop. You go like you can start with like the shoes you wear. Like look at the blue collar comedy tour guys. Like they're not really like that. Jeff Foxworthy doesn't go, if you know, when he wakes up and is hanging out with his friends, God have no friends, dude. He'd be in Santa Claus, freaking Alaska or North Pole, Alaska. He'd be the only citizen up there.
He'd be the vice mayor.
Exactly, dude. Be him and the other dude. So yeah, it's a little bit discreet, but it's the challenge. I mean, it's tough and it's super competitive.
So do you have an ultimate goal? Like what, do you have something in your mind where you can look at it and be like, okay, I've made it? Is there something like that, or is it just always continual for you?
Probably if I can play video games and feel no guilt. No, I would say I always wanted to do SNL. That's why I got into it, but maybe I'm getting a little bit too old for it. But I would say now the goal would be, you know, it's sort of like what I'm doing now, but just on a level where I don't have to have the day job, like creating stuff with my bros, Chad and JT, like creating a show, working, basically being, you know, having my job and my income be through entertainment jobs, you know, the podcast, stand-up tour, and then, you know, writing and creating shows and movies with my buddies because it's the best.
So where can people find you? What's your Instagram, social media, websites? Have some, you know, no limits here on some public, you know, PR, how people can
Legend.
find you.
Thank you, dude. Instagram at Strider Shreds all day. And, you know, you can find everything there. Other than that, like History is Dank. But, you know, I've got links to that on my Instagram, and, you know, you can find that and listen to that anywhere you want. There's History is Dank YouTube as well. I post it on YouTube as well if you want to watch. And yeah, I would say mainly everything's on that Instagram right there. So yeah, that's about it.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, Strider. We have Strider Wilson here, and I want to encourage everybody, if you need a laugh in your day, which turn on the news and you'll quickly find that you need some comedy in your life and you need a smile. Go check out Strider Wilson. He is very, very funny. I think he is hilarious. And if I think he's funny, I'm sure other folks in Alaska will think he's funny too. So Strider, thank you so much for joining us on the Must Read Alaska show. And for everybody that's listening and tuning in, we're going to do more of these kind of sparkled in throughout the year of different business men and women and people in the nonprofit world and just the tourism world, and just trying to give you a different slice of life every once in a while. So Strider, again, thank you so much. And hopefully you'll join us again sometime and come up to Alaska again. And, you know, next time you're up here, maybe go to Denali or something like that. So
I would love to. Thanks for having me. And I absolutely have to come back to Alaska. It's awesome up there.
Okay. So for everybody out there, we'll be on, what day is it? Friday. We'll be back on Monday, Suzanne and I. So until then, from somewhere in Alaska, John Quick here signing off.